And if they're not within spec, if they're not within the amount that they're supposed to be, then we're gonna have to, whichever camshaft it is, likely both, there'll likely be one or two at least that's out of spec, out of the 8 valves per camshaft. We're gonna have to remove that camshaft, and we'll get to how we adjust. We have our specs right here. We have 8 valves per camshaft, kind of upside down, with the bottom being the front. But we're gonna measure whatever valves we can right now. Whichever lobes are up. If I can't get this 0.2 in there, then we are within spec, and we do not need to do anything for that valve. And it looks like I can't shove the 0.2 in there. So this valve is within spec. I'm hoping for the same story here. I cannot get the 0.2 in there. Next one I'm going to try is the 0.17. Can't get that one in there. Next I'll try the 0.15. Just remember, I'm looking at the millimeters, not this 0.006 inches. We're working on a metric bike here. And look at that, the 0.15 squeezed right in. So that valve is within spec. If they're within spec, I have nothing to do for them. So I simply put an X to let myself know that these are within spec. By cranking that, you can see that the motor actually turns over, and so do the valves. Now, I already have a couple more valves I can check in the current position, so I'm gonna do those, and I'm gonna basically repeat the process. I'm gonna turn the motor over until I get all 16 valves measured. This is our outcome. Oh, I didn't even mark those. These 2 valves. So even at 28,000, there will be valves out of spec. When I was looking up these numbers in the forums, people like to spread these rumors that you don't need to do a valve adjustment, period, or you don't need to do it anywhere near, you know, close to that interval, which I will say can be true. If you have a powerful bike but you don't push it, you just cruise on it for the most part, you know, 95% of the time, 99% of the time especially, which most people do. If you're not pushing it, you're not gonna need a valve adjustment at the interval in the service manual. You can wait 5, 10, even 15,000. I have done it, but I've realized that with more experience, I am an aggressive rider. So I decided on this bike, I am gonna be doing this close to on time. I'm 2,000 late, but that's fine. So, running out of battery here. What I'm gonna do is, in order to not skip any teeth, I'm gonna put a zip tie very tightly through one of the sprocket holes on each sprocket, so my timing chain can't skip a tooth. That is extremely vital. If you skip one tooth, obviously most of you would know this by now, you literally, you know, kiss the motor goodbye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a zip tie around on the sprocket to make sure we don't skip a tooth. And I have a manual cam chain tensioner with this, which this R1 just needs to have. Apparently the hydraulic ones fail from factory. So if you have a hydraulic chain tensioner, after you put the zip ties on, you can take out the tensioner and basically just make sure when you take out your tensioner, that it doesn't come loose on the bottom sprocket, which I'm not sure if I can see. Yeah, so there's that bottom. I need to make sure it doesn't skip any teeth when I carefully remove the cam chain tensioner. What I can do to prevent that is pull up on the cam and keep the tension by simply, you know, doing exactly what I'm releasing the tension for, which is pulling the cam up, and I can keep that tight. I can maybe put something in there to not let it fall all the way. But in my case, I do have a manual cam chain tensioner, so I'm gonna loosen the locking nut, and I'm gonna loosen the cam chain tensioner just enough. I might not need to loosen it at all, but I'm gonna loosen it just enough so that I can get to my two valves that are off. The reason I might not need to even loosen my cam chain tensioner is because the two valves that are out of spec are, let me see, I believe it was this one and this one. Yeah, they're pretty far, they're over to the opposite side, so by removing these, it should lift enough for me to get the shim bucket out. So right, we took the bolts out. I'm gonna use the same paper towel. I'm gonna put the cam covers right on there. I want to note that when you take these bolts out, half the time these can actually just spring up on you, or they can just start coming up as you're loosening the bolt. They have guides as well. We're gonna need to remove cover 1, 2, and 3. There is a slight gap already, so that's gonna help pry it off. I will use a flathead, but I cannot stress this enough. You must be very gentle. Carefully, one, the other. Try to go from the opposite end until they come off. It doesn't look like any of these are coming off by hand. Sometimes they do. I'm gonna very, very carefully pry them off because I cannot damage between there. This is an aluminum block, aluminum head, just like most sport bikes. So we're just gonna do a slow and careful pry off. So as I pried the second one off right here, the third one, the whole thing just kind of popped up on me, of course, because the valve springs are gonna be pushing it up. I need a clean magnet on a stick. This surrounding part has some dirt in it, so I put a zip tie to separate them. And basically what I'm doing is, my second valve is 0.26. 0.26 of a gap in there, and I need it to be ever so slightly tighter at 0.25. So that's valve number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna take my magnet on a stick. I'm gonna grab the shim bucket with my magnet on a stick, and this shim bucket is gonna contain something that pisses me off incredibly. I don't have the right shims. Ooh, and I sure as hell better not be losing the shims. Wow. Alright, you guys. Incredibly epic fail. I am so glad. They are extremely close to being within spec, because I have literally no shim to replace this shim with. I am literally gonna have to repeat this entire process in about 10,000 miles, maybe 8, whenever I feel like it. But guys, double check that your shim kit is the right size, which I didn't do. And wow, I'm incredibly aggravated right now. So as you can see, there are basically 2 sizes to shims. I have the wrong one, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you what I was going to do. So what we do is we take a macrometer, a macrometer, and make sure it's zeroed out, and we measure our shim. So we put it in the macrometer. Cannot lose this one shim because we have no replacement. So this one is measuring at 1.85. So 1.85 is the current distance. Is the current size of the shim. Now we have a gap that needs to be filled within spec, so 0.21 to 0.25. So this one is 0.26. So this is 1.85, and since we need to close that 0.26 down to a point, 23, 24, we need to get it within spec. I would simply look for, they should be organized to a degree. So here we go. I would find another shim that would measure ever so slightly larger. So this is a 1.9. This would be my replacement shim. I would put it in there, and it would go from 0.26 to 0.21. So if the shim is slightly fatter, our gap gets that same exact slightly tighter. And of course, putting the shim in must be extremely careful. I always use the magnet stick. And we'll place the shim right into its seat.